Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I have so much stuff going on at the moment. I got a show to do. I got the Lions versus Raiders on my TV. And then I have the Denver Nuggets on my streaming on my other computer as I host a wrestling show. Am I doing too much? Yes. Yes, I am. Am I going to do something about it? No. No, I'm not. Being overburdened is the only way I can feel alive. It is a sickness. I am your host, as always, Chad Porto. Joining me is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, it is Halloween's Eve.
Yes. That means televisions are likely being peppered with repeated airings of Hocus Pocus, all of Michael Myers affairs, and God knows what else. Ooh, they're airing the Batman for the first time. That's interesting. But yeah.
So I'm glad that you brought that up already. I finally saw Hocus Pocus 2.
Oh, you beat me to it. Goddamn.
It is fine. The guy, so I try not to boil people down to their identities, but I don't know names. Sorry. There's a black actor in this who is fantastic, but I love him more in Ted Lasso because he plays like an African billionaire that tries to get Sammy to join his team, and Sammy refuses, and Sammy's from Nigeria. So he goes, "You Nigerian motherfucker!"
I'm out to do that. Show must be as good as everybody say it is. Cause I'm like, if Chad says P, it's P.
It has. Sammy is a golden retriever in human form, and I adore that man. He's so lovable. He really is. And he loves his dad, and his dad loves him. It's really just a good, wholesome show. Basically, with the premise of you might be bad or have done bad things, but you can do good. And just because you do good things doesn't make you good. It's all about the intention. And I like that. It's a nice message. It made me feel like I was watching an after-school special, but on the diseased streaming service that is Apple Plus. So, take the good with the bad. That's how I get the facts of life. Speaking of the facts of life, Marcus, I'm a big fan of the Halloween, the spooky ooky season. Big fan. So I saw some movies recently that I'd like to recommend or not recommend. On the highly recommend, Better Than You Might Believe It. Now I gotta remember what the hell it was.
No, I'm about to say, is that the name?
No, I just watched. So I watched Five Nights at Freddy's. That's not the one I forgot. I would give that a C. The ideas they went with were good. The elements were spooky. It's not a hard R movie, so it's like a PG-13 because it has an intended audience, and that's all well and good. So check that out for sure. It's definitely worth a peek. It's not going to be your favorite movie, but you're going to be like, that wasn't the worst thing I've seen all year. Then I also watched The Dead Don't Die, starring Bill Murray and Darth Not Vader. Adam Driver, that's his name. And yeah, I didn't finish it. It was bad. It was really bad. Made no sense. Hell of a cast, though. The cast alone would be like, how did all that come about? Now, I can't remember what the third one was that I watched. Freaky, with Vince Vaughn and a little blonde girl. That was surprisingly very good. It's not going to be your favorite movie, but it takes the body swap idea to a whole new level because the main character, she gets body swapped with a mass murderer, a serial killer. And so they have shenanigans that are violent and hilarious. So those are the three movies I've recently watched that may pique your Halloween interest. So with that being said, Marcus, do you have any you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, these were the ones I had planned to watch. Was Hocus Pocus 2, I think The Haunting of the Demeter,
The
That,
Demeter, yes. Solid
yeah,
flick.
nice. Looking forward to checking that out. Um, some good actors in there. And what else did I say? I think it's a movie on Netflix that came out a while ago called Night Teeth. I think it's what is black. He's either a cab or Uber driver, and he basically end up shuttling around vampires or whatever. Which I'm usually not into the whole vampire ness of it all, but I said I was gonna check it out, so I might check that out. Trying to see if there was anything else spookily related. I guess because I started, I need to finish it and watch Halloween Ends.
I'm going to spoil it, Marcus. It ends. The Last Voyage of the Demeter's a solid flick, especially if you do a double header, because it's the story of how Dracula got from wherever to England.
Mm.
The other good one that you should watch if you're feeling a Dracula vampire-esque mood, as it seems to be the flavor of the night for you, would be the one with Nicholas Hoult, Renfeld. I thought it was gonna be a lot funnier than it was, but if you like
Which,
Nicolas Cage eating scenery like he's a vegan, my word, you are gonna
mm,
love this movie. And there's a
okay,
great sight gag that you have to pay attention to when the two cross paths in Nicholas Holtz's new apartment in the movie. Just pay attention to the sight gag. It is worth everything you've ever done. It's the best joke I've
gotcha,
seen all year.
gotcha. Let's see. Okay, yeah, Renfield. That was yeah. I kind of avoided that because I was like, I don't know. Nick Cage got to hit a certain medium for me that I don't always. He's definitely one of those actors. Like after he did that Spirit of Vengeance, I was like, okay, Cage is hitting different zones. But I did see recently one serious movie that recently dropped with him that I heard was really good. Um, I forgot the exact name of it, but yeah. Have you seen Dracula Untold with Luke Evans?
No, no, I have not.
Okay.
But I've heard nothing but terrible things about that movie. So with that said, those are some recommendations, some watch list updates. I'm gonna do a whole list on Twitter eventually of the things I watched this year, with a letter grade next to it. But tonight it's about TNA and the TNA-ness of it all, and who's more TNA than Mr. Mike Tenay, whose name almost sounds like TNA. When asked recently by Mike Johnson, a PW Insider, if Tenay would return to commentating, and Tenay's only in his 60s. He's not like really old. I think he's 64.
Yeah, he looks good, man.
He is. Oh, he's 68. He's a little bit older than I thought. But he said, quote, would I have liked to be continued on in the role as TNA lead announcer before he was swapped out? Yeah, probably for a couple more years. But then he goes on to say, things that went down throughout the years in terms of, and I know it went on forever, but in terms of me coming back, would I ever? It's the weirdest thing. I never wanted to have multiple retirements, comebacks, retirements. Pretty much everybody does in the history of the professional wrestling. I felt like it was kind of a clean break. I follow everything religiously. I don't think it would be that tough of a transition if I did want to come back. I don't know if every company wants an old guy on their TV show. At the same time, would I rule any possibility of coming back, of a comeback out? I would say no. I wouldn't rule it out, but it would have to be under my own terms. I don't know that any company is willing to have it under my terms. It's nothing that I really feel in my heart that I need to go back and do. Again, in this reflection of the last couple of weeks, I think I'm kind of happy with everything that I did, and I liked moving on from it. Right place, right time. I can't say I never would do it, but it's not something that takes up a lot of my time thinking about, gosh, I need to get back into doing wrestling announcing. If I'm Anthem, I go, what are your conditions? Because I will meet them. If it's like a once a month kind of thing, if it's only the big shows, whatever. I will find a way to do it. Is it a 3-man announce booth, a 2-man, a 1-man? Is it a 1-man and 1-woman? Like, you let me know, right? Because other than that, like I don't see any reason for anyone not to want Tenay back. I know he's 68, but Shivani's like 70. So like clearly, Cole's in his 60s. At least he's got to be close. Dude was in his 30s when I started watching him. Michael Cole, how old?
Yeah, and they just all over Twitter that JR and King reunion. I know both of them are well into their 70s, right?
Yeah, Michael Cole's 56. And Jim Ross is 71.
Which means his girlfriend's probably in her 30s.
I don't think Jim Ross's girlfriend is in her 30s. Jerry Loss is 73, and you know his girlfriend is definitely in her 20s.
No, not Jay. I'm talking about King. But
Let's see. Lauren McBride is his current wife. She's got to be at least in her 40s. Oh no, she when she got arrested in what was this 7 years ago, she was 27, so she's 35 now.
yeah,
I'm surprised they're still together.
Nice. Oh, that's hilarious. That's age out of your marriage.
Well, someone's going to. That said, Marcus, Tenay back in TNA, is it something you want to see?
I mean, absolutely, man. Like I said, that Hall of Fame was beautiful. From Miss Tracy Brooks to the absolute two legendary voices, the foundational sound of TNA being Mike Tenay and the late great man himself.
I would love to see
more. Yeah.
No, it's all right. I would love to see more Tenay. Like, Tenay is one of the best announcers in history of wrestling, and I would argue he's arguably the best. And, like, I know we tend to let nostalgia fuel us, but I don't think there was a better combination, if we're being honest with ourselves, in the last 30 years than Mike Tenay and Don West.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's hard to find that chemistry. Also, you could stick two people together for years and years and years, but don't necessarily always come off like a true tandem the way that they did. And I think I'm more of a fan of Hanford and Ray Walt than you are, but I think it's a vast improvement from Callis and those days of Callis and Matthews, which was only enjoyable because Callis would be railing on him for the whole hour, which was enjoyable. But that does not a good commentary team make. So, but yeah, West and Tenay are golden, and if they can find a way to get Tenay back, maybe for some special occasions like the big shows like Slammiversary and BFG and stuff like that, do it. I doubt. I mean, every other place seems like they got a damn 3-man booth. I mean, feel like the AEW got a damn 5-man booth at times. But yeah, I think if you can find a way to get them back for special occasions, man, do it. Obviously, I think bringing back the brand in general, they go try to maybe embrace that past while very much powering forward into the future. But if you can find a way to mix the am I call his nickname right, the Doctor?
Professor.
Yeah, the professor in there, man. I mean, come on. Like, I don't think anybody. I mean, you chanting TNA, you basically chanting for Mike Tenay. So.
And you're not wrong, honestly. When it comes to Mike Tenay, he's been the voice of TNA wrestling for as long as I can think of. And I will never truly be okay with the fact that TNA made the decisions to move on from Don West and Mike Tenay when they did. Don West, like, Taz is not a better announcer than Don West. He's always been just the absolute worst. I'm going to try to keep my language PG. He's been the absolute worst. And he's the worst in AEW. He was the worst on SmackDown. He did dub Brock Lesnar the term Vanilla Gorilla. So I'll always thank him for that. And when he had Vince in his ear on SmackDown, he was tolerable. But without Vince, like, he really loses a lot, in my opinion, of like that type of personality you need. Like, he's very intelligent. He knows what he's talking about. but he also comes off as very aloof and basically you understand why Rob Van Dam slapped the taste out of his mouth with his foot. And as far as Mike Tenay, you know, they made that decision to go from Tenay to Josh Matthews, and I like to call those the dark years. Josh Matthews has never been a good announcer. I've never liked him as an announcer. He has something to add to the product, but not as a lead announcer, and I don't think Hammerfront's any good at all either. You know, plus there's that whole plane scandal thing where he was allegedly sending nudes to people while married. That's not great. And Raywald's fine, but like when you have guys like Pope and Don West who have come through there, he's not on their level. And I think that the booth needs a very big overhaul, especially if we're going back to TNA. But who knows if that's going to happen. Speaking of things that are going to happen, Leon Slater, British talent, signed a contract with TNA Wrestling during the UK Invasion Tour, which apparently was a massive success for the company, to the point where I believe Scott D'Amore said that they will be coming back sooner rather than later. At a sold-out event in Coventry, England, the current Impact, soon-to-be TNA Wrestling president Scott D'Amore signs 19-year-old UK sensation Leon Slater to a long-term contract, probably a 3-year deal. Slater's known for his, and I think we've nailed it down to a 450 Swanton bomb, which is lunatic just to even think about someone being able to do. There was a time when we're like watching Jeff Hardy do a Swanton going, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Boy, things have changed in 25 years. But seeing Slater, now I'm not very familiar with him, but I hear great things. This, to me, kind of harkens back to 2014, I think, when Impact was about to sign Will Ospreay. I don't know if you remember that, Marcus. But after wrestling 3 matches on the UK tour that year, Ospreay had a deal in place, but then reneged on it and went to New Japan instead, crashing Impact as he left. What 9 years can do.
It's funny because at that time, I mean, that's a year after I graduated, and not too long after I started here.
Yeah.
So, because I think I remember you talking about that, you trashing Ospreay because he trashed the company on the way out. I mean, obviously, things break down, but that could have been handled better. Obviously, growth and maturity, all things. So, and I do think it speaks volumes to where both sides have grown to where he is arguably the best in the world right now, and probably company's very close to signing him, depending on how things go. So obviously there's been growth on both sides, but yeah, I think this signing with this young kid is hopefully a great start to a plethora of great signings upcoming. We've been talking about for the longest time they need to get young, quality talent in there, and this another young black talent in there. That's can be a gem in the X division going forward. 19 years old, right? Picking, like you said, long-term deals, likely 3 years. So this is how you kick it out the gate, man. And like I said, like you, I'm not familiar with him, but I hear nothing but great stuff.
So I lost my focus a little bit. My point about the Will Ospreay of it all wasn't to dog on him. It was to point out that this is like that moment all over again, but this time pulled off. Because the way people talk about young Leon Slater is the way people used to talk about Will Ospreay, which, by the way, it wasn't 2014, it was 2016. I had to look it up. And Ospreay, 7 years ago, when he was a little 22, 23-year-old whippersnapper, had a lot of momentum around him, but he wasn't well known. It would be his trip to New Japan, especially his feud with Ricochet, or I shouldn't say feud, that gymnastics match they had, that probably may have been the reason Vader died. That's a bad joke. That put Ospreay on the map. And I feel like Leon Slater, especially when he comes to Impact, where this is, in my opinion, the best workers roster they've ever had. Because you have some gems in guys like Josh Alexander and Mike Bailey, who are at the top of their game. Eddie Edwards, who isn't too far away from his apex. You know, Gresham, who's every bit as good as Alexander. You have some really just strong cats in this division for terms of talent. And I feel like Slater's going to fit right in. Now, that being said, I do want to see more out of Gresham in terms of what they do with him. I don't want them to lose him. And I feel like they need to start booking him better if they're going to keep him. Because AEW will throw money at anyone with a name. And I hate it.
Yeah, and like we said, I feel like he left AEW to come to Impact for just that opportunity because I think he kind of seen the writing on the wall, having that brand be secondary when he had put so much work in, having to put it on his back to be champion. But I think this potential thing with him being a heel with his particular style and looking at the opportunities that others have had that he seemingly hasn't gotten, I think could be a great thing going forward. So hopefully we see coming off this show because I think the last thing he did was kind of run afoul with Bailey. So hopefully, we see him because if he, like we said, he could be an absolute monster heel with his style, just going around just putting people in casts all the time.
Now that wouldn't be. I would like to see that. Seeing Gresham do a limb breaker gimmick. That'd be nice. I'd be down for that. But Slater versus Gresham is something that we can definitely think about long term. Another young talent that will be joining the roster is going to be Harley Hudson. Unlike Slater, who signed an Impact TNA contract for a few years, Harley has earned a Impact Wrestling gut check developmental deal. Let's see here. According to WrestleZone, Impact Talent Relations, as a result, Hudson, a native of Liverpool, earned a developmental deal with the company. Impact posted a picture of Hudson shaking hands with Demore. Hudson then commented in a tweet, with the victory, Hudson earned the right to train at the Can-Am Dojo in Canada, so she'll be going off there, and will probably be working a bunch of shows at Border Championship Wrestling, and then maybe even working her way down to OVW, first of all, depending on what the deal is with them, because they use a few TNA guys, namely Mahabali Shera, or Mahabali Shera, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Like with Leon Slater, I don't know much about young Miss Harley Hudson, but she's got an interesting look. Not a fan of the cheetah print, leopard print, but like that's fine. Got the pink hair, got the pink furls. She's got something. And I'm curious to see what she can do in a larger setting. Marcus, any thoughts on the new development deal for Harley Hudson?
Yeah, I'm just checking this out because I haven't really been online all day. But yeah, I do because I did hear that they was going to do the gut check thing again. Is this the first? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the first female that they've had win gut check?
No. No, actually, but this is a deep cut, so I don't expect you to know this. Back in 2005, I want to say, at the inaugural gut check, when it was just a training exercise for indie wrestlers to participate in, I'm pretty sure Zerelda, who would later make her debut against AMW siding with Styles and Daniels, I'm pretty sure she was a gut check winner. I think next week we should do an entire show dedicated on the gut check winners and where they are and what they've become. Because I'm pretty sure TNA had gut check winners in 2004.
Oh wow!
Let me pull this up. TNA
was there
gut check.
Was there gap years? Because I think I checked into the whole gut check thing. I think when was it the dude with the dreads got it?
So it wasn't always a TV segment.
Gotcha.
It used to just be a. It used to just be an actual come train and we'll pick you if you're good. All right. So the first two were Jamie Dauncey, and Dauncey became Zerelda, and she wrestled for a long time actually, 2004 to 2017. And then the other one was John Boland, who didn't last long in TNA. he was gone fairly quick. He was in LVW for a while, did some stuff on the Indies, wrestled with Global Force for a little bit. Then after that, they took an 8-year break before coming back in 2012, where we had Alex Silva, Taylor Hendricks, Sam Shaw, Christian York, Wes Briscoe, Jay Bradley, Lady Tapa, Tafita Fafita, which is Tongaloa. And then they had recently Shogun, who hasn't been around on TV, Jason Hotch, who is one of the tag team wrestlers in the Good Hands, Jack Price, who had a few TV matches, and now recently Harley Hudson. So, not a who's who. I think Sam Shaw might be the biggest, or no, probably Tongaloa is probably the biggest name to ever come out of this. But we'll talk more about that next week when we have time. Because tonight we also have some more roster conversations to have. Sonny Kiss has not signed with Impact Wrestling, the wrestler says. Speaking with TK Trinidad with the Women's Wrestling Talk podcast or website, I don't know. Sonny Kiss goes on to say, let's see. That's so funny because I'm like, damn, we can't even get right into the interview yet. We didn't even start asking how I'm doing. It's like, let me just tell everybody that that's not true in regards to signing a contract. It's not what it is right now. I'm open to what's for me. I'm still a free agent. I am one talented son of a. I'm open to whoever, whenever I'm supposed to be. So we're not big fans of Sonny Kiss, but obviously there's a fan base for the young wrestler. I think not signing Sonny Kiss to a long-term deal is probably the right move right now because this is a roster that has to really invest in star power right now. And I think all eyes should be on Will Ospreay and CM Punk, regardless of how you feel about either man. Because if there's any hope of getting them, that needs to be the focus. So,
yeah, those are two needle movers. Period. And again, we don't got no personal against Sonny Kiss, but I feel like they bring him in. Obviously, I think he's gonna have some interactions with Trent, but I feel like they'd immediately run him into somebody like Kenny King, and that's not going to necessarily be good for any of Kenny King's momentum because King kind of thrives at being an agitator, and that'll just be something for Sonny Kiss to do. And if you're gonna derail King, then just have Kiss being irritant with no real direction. I mean, it's not going to be too much different from what he did in AEW, except we're going to see him more. So I'm with you on that. And like you said, just sign this new X Division talent. The young lady from Gut Check seems to have potential. And like we said, if 2024 sees them get both of those names, just go sit back and do the Burns hands and let the internet implode. Because it's going to be the most offensive thing to some of these flat scans they've ever experienced. But yeah.
The emotional turmoil that some of these guys and gals will go through watching CM Punk and Will Ospreay walk through the TNA tunnel, hopefully, will be quite funny.
As Gold member said in that Austin Powers movie, so there's no pleasing you.
Pretty much. All right, speaking of pleasing us, Heath is gone. I am pleased. Heath's contract expired. Sean Ross Sapp noted that he wrapped up with Impact the weekend of Bound for Glory. Heath competed in the Call Your Shot Gauntlet Battle Royal. At the show, he last wrestled for the company at Impact Bound for Glory. Following this departure, Heath is now accepting bookings. Heath is fine. He's one of those guys that, like, if you're talking about lower card guys, yeah, sure, sign Heath. Terrible name, though. Terrible name. Never really lived up to his own hype. He did have a good match with Moose for the then Impact World Championship, but I wouldn't say that I was ever impressed to any degree with Heath. He did have a tag team title run with Rhino, though. But I think Rhino's better off without Heath, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We talked about before how obviously age and injuries and stuff kind of put Rhino in a certain category, but he has these instances, these bursts, if you will, where he could be quite quite good depending on the scenario he's in. He was good with Heath, no doubt, but I really like him kind of getting back to that bit of that Rhino of old, being, you know, like Rhino, the hunter, not the hunted. So sad having somebody like him hunting somebody like Macklin and goring him out of nowhere on a consistent basis has been really entertaining to see. Like I said, it kind of feels like that Rhino of old. He's not necessarily goring somebody through the Titantron or whatever, bottom of the Titantron, but it's still some good stuff. So yeah, I think I was more of a fan of Heath than you. I just thought he did some good stuff in Impact. Very much a fan of his finisher. That's probably my favorite moment in that call your shot, other than seeing Grace win, was him hitting them slew of wake up calls. Is one of my favorite moves. But yeah, I mean, he really wasn't. He was kind of just floating, really. I mean, the whole character narrative was him going out to people that were, uh, I guess, disruptors or whatever. But that's no real consistent thing. So appreciate what he did. And if you be interested in seeing where you go, maybe he shows up and pops up in NWA. Because I can't really see him find himself in AEW and really doing anything of note. I feel like he'd end up on the same level of somebody like Ethan Page or something.
Yeah, I'm with you on where he would end up in AEW. The thing with the NWA, and they had a show this past weekend that definitely has some critics because the set they had was abysmal. It was terrible, and I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. It's a so you kind of got cut out, but I heard you enough. You were asking if it was worth the TV setup. Yes,
Oh
because
wow.
the setup for the show was a cardboard cutout arch that was like stone, but like paper mache stone, like made it look like it was stone. A 5 foot tall dragon, and what was it? Not a crown, a giant kingly chair, throne. That's what I'm thinking. And that was it, and it was all on a stage, and it was really fucking horrendous looking. Now I haven't watched the show. I didn't end up going due to some financial restrictions. But I'm gonna watch it sometime this week. It didn't look well done, but a lot of people were talking very positively about the show, and I think one of the things that the NWA can really benefit from is this influx of ex WWE mid card stars. You got EC3, who was at one time the face of TNA or Impact Wrestling. They have Matt Cardona back. He's working with them again. If they bring in Heath, I think that helps elevate their main event scene because they don't have a main event scene. Like they had their main event for this past weekend was EC3 in his hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, taking on Thom Latimer, and up until the day before the event, there was still half, if not more, of the available tickets. So I don't know if they had more tickets sold um, uh, with the walk up, which usually ends up happening. But yeah, the set wasn't great, and the main event didn't sound great because who the fuck wants to watch Thom Latimer?
Wait a minute. You mean to tell me all just left and Tom didn't just slide right in his spot?
Right? So, needless to say, the NWA needs some headliners, and I think Keith could actually help them with that. I think he'd be a nice fit down in the NWA.
Is Homicide still there?
Maybe. It's really hard to know who's on the roster at this point because like it shuffles and changes so often. Um,
That's, that's crazy. I'm like, if they don't have a certain individual, I'm like, if Pope's not still there, Impact, could y'all call my boy over so we can hear that wonderful music again? That'll be a great surprise for 2024.
I don't know if Pope's still there. If he's not, I would love him back in TNA. I think he'd be like, he was, of all the living commentators that TNA has that aren't on the roster currently, that have been with a commentator, I think Pope is probably the best available in terms of and I'm not talking about his skin tone, of the color guys available. Historically you have Taz, you had Pope, Ray Walt, you had Don Callis. I'm missing a few, I know. But like Pope was the best, or at least is the best of those surviving. And I feel like if you really want to launch 2024 in a big way, you bring in Pope, at least on commentary, if not as a wrestler. Now, that being said, I'm also very excited about the prospect and possibility of seeing someone like Shane Douglas come in as a commentator. I think he would be great on commentary. But that's more because I'm more of a Shane Douglas fan than many. So, we'll see what happens. All right, Marcus, we're moving on to Speedball. Mike Bailey talks about setting the highest standard of match for Impact Wrestling in 2024. Apparently, Dave Meltzer gave it a 5.25 stars. And to that I say, Marcus, TNA has had more than 2 5-star matches in their history, despite what Dave Meltzer will tell you. Now, the Unbreakable 3-Way is a great match, and the Ospreay Speedball Bound for Glory match was a great match, but there's been so many great matches that the fact that we have to sit here and tell people that Dave Meltzer doesn't watch enough TNA to actually know what he's talking about. The fact that we got to do this is a little bit insulting.
I feel like the only reason why he watched that match because Ospreay was in it.
Yep. Now, listen, that's great. Great for Ospreay, great for TNA. Get people to get eyes on the product. But Anderson Angle, Lockdown, that was great. You know, Styles versus Daniels, pick one. Fantastic.
Exactly.
You know,
Both triple threats. Yeah, both triple threats.
mm-hmm. EC3 Spud in a First Blood match was amazing. You know, Austin Aries and Bobby Roode and James Storm at Bound for Glory 2012. You know, any number of Josh Alexander. He had the hour-long Iron Man match against TJP. He had the Iron Man match against Speedball.
Pick in the last 2 years. Pick any most Alexander's matches, any Speedball match. The women have had some bangers.
Taryn and Gale
yeah,
at Slammiversary 2013.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we're missing something. I know we're missing something because it's like the more said it on that call, like we established consistency and consistency, continuity. Something else he said, but yeah, it's absurd, and I think he's really. I've heard other people talk about this too. He's really kind of like chopped down a lot of his credibility with all the AEW nut hugging that he does.
So, Dave Meltzer to me is someone who, as a historian, is invaluable. As a critic, is ignorable. He likes a certain style of wrestling, and he'll only ever rep that style of wrestling. Now, if you put any onus or credence into Dave Meltzer, okay, cool, that's you. But most of us don't worship the man. I think he's more right than he's wrong. But I also think it's fair to point out that he gets his information straight from guys like the Young Bucks and pretends he doesn't. He is the mouthpiece to these guys, and just like with Adam Schefter or Shams, these guys will do anything to protect their sources, even spouting narratives that they either may not believe, may not want to believe, or fully know is incorrect. Because they're trying to keep their sources happy, because that's what modern journalism has become. So Dave Meltzer is really not a source for news anymore, and Dave Meltzer's opinions are just that, opinions. There is no definitive stats that proves whether a match is a 5-star match or not. All you can do is say, this is a really good match, you should check it out. And that's why I really get angry when I see people like, oh, it's the second 5-star match in company history. Says who? Dave Meltzer? Fuck Dave Meltzer.
You ain't even been watching the company for half of the last decade, so it just sit down somewhere. Like some people just love to be followers, but speaking of a stat that I think is absolutely concrete, and we don't usually do this here, but I think I'm gonna speak for Chad because I think he 100% agree with me. Anything associated with wrestling.co is 100% BS 100% of the time.
I don't know who wrestling.co is, but yes.
.co or whatever.
I think I know. I think we had one of their articles up actually.
Yeah,
uh,
sports journalism.
Ringside News, is that the one? Or is it
It's
wrestling.co?
wrestlingnews.co. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't follow wrestlingnews.co, but there are a lot of shady ass websites that you can't trust. Did they do something recently? Wrestlingnews.co?
you call them out almost every month for a bad headline, a misleading headline, having misspelled words in their headlines.
So, admittedly, like I said before, I'm not great with names. This isn't a joke. Like, names and dates are not things I remember. It just, I don't know. My brain doesn't work that way. But yeah, I believe it. Like, I know that I do that shit. Especially when it comes to TNA, especially when it comes to guys that are just getting in on the hype for that reason, for the hype of it all. Yeah, I'm going to call you out just the way it is. So yeah, Marcus, I agree with you completely. If they're one of the outlets that I have taken umbrage with, then yes. By the by, my new favorite thing to use as a response is that sketch with the wrestling guy who gets asked like, "So, well, what do you think of your last match?" And there's like a giant pause, and he just goes, "Yep." I'm using that for everything. It's my Frank's
Yeah.
Red Hot. I'm gonna put that shit on everything.
Shout out to Alex Shetty. Get well soon, by the way.
Yeah, he pulled his calf, I think, and he missed most of the tour.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's it. But yeah, people. TNA Impact, far more 5 stars than you could probably even comprehend, and most of which probably occurred over the last however many years. Probably occurred on Impact.
There was the OVE LAX Barbed Wire 3 match. There was Pentagon versus Sami Callihan. There was Sami Callihan versus Eddie Edwards. There's a lot. There's Eddie versus Alexander. So, there's a lot. Speaking of a lot, Eric Young has a lot coming up. Apparently, in a recent interview with the House of Wrestling, Eric Young has stated that his future will look a lot like it used to when he was back with TNA Wrestling. Saying, quote, "I have very exciting news that I can't say, but I'll have another show in the works that will be airing very soon. It'll be shooting in November. I can say that it is musically based, which is my belief that it's on Access TV as it's a music-based channel. And anyone that personally knows me or follows me on Instagram knows that the collection of my vinyl records is a massive part of my life. I have over 2,500 of them. Started collecting, and I've been collecting for about 8 years. If it has to do with vinyl records and my love of music, it'll probably be able to share more information real soon. It's super exciting, man." Marcus, did you ever watch any of his other shows?
I think, yeah, I think I caught some of his wildlife shows when he was the champion. Uh, some of that stuff was interesting, but I don't think because I think he had what 2 or 3 shows on the air at that time.
I want to say
Uh,
two.
yeah, 2. I think I definitely caught one of them.
One was a fishing show. One was more of an extreme wildlife show, I think.
Yeah, I think I caught both of them on and off, but because it was cool to see, and it really went with his aesthetic at the time. Because he had that Family Guy beard when Peter got that beard and birds was staying in it.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it did.
he definitely was on that level. So yeah, this is interesting. Like I didn't, know he was into music. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. I don't know if that was his bike uh, that he had and used in that great bit that I think you retweeted when he was supposedly killed off of Impact and he woke back up and kind of drove off Sons of Anarchy style into the night. Um, but he may be potentially a motorcycle enthusiast too. But yeah, eclectic guy. Feel like he has as many interests as he does tats, and that's saying something.
It really is. The Naked Mole Rat strikes again. Eric Young also talked about why he went with Impact, not AEW, in the same interview. He said, "I talked with some friends there at AEW. And people that I trust, and Tony had kind of mentioned that he was interested, but it just never materialized. The truth is, I'm just going to get lost. I'm just going to get lost in there in the ether, and in the mix like 60 other people there. Right? The truth is, I don't have his confidence. Me and him aren't close in any way, shape, or form. I'm kind of replacing one set of problems for another, and I have nothing against Tony Khan. From everything I know, he's a very nice man. I met him a couple times in passing. He treats the wrestlers with respect. He pays them very well and is a very respectful man and kind man. So it's nothing against the product or nothing against them. It's just not my place. Impact Wrestling is my home. That's where I wanted to be, so that's where I am. So obviously there's there's some issues with signing with AEW, and I think that's why a lot of guys are starting to look elsewhere. Like Will Ospreay, if he goes to AEW, he's going to get lost in the shuffle as well. Are you surprised I didn't go to AEW, Marcus?
No, no, because I feel like he kind of reminds me like being like kind of in line like Madison Rain. Like even if he goes away, there's always an open door policy, and he kind of always comes home. I think he tried with WWE like twice.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a good run with I forget exactly.
Sanity.
Thank you, Sanity. Had a good run with that in NXT and whatnot, but never really fully translated to anything worthwhile on the main roster. And I don't know if he really would unless they went back to the potential Sanity gimmick. But I just feel like the Impact is home. He realizes his home. He fits there, even if he doesn't look like any of the Eric Youngs of old, like we talked about before. It feels like we've seen him live out so many different lives uh, on Impact, and that's just where he fits ultimately. And I think as he seems like a reasonable man that uses his brain. You kind of look at the board of AEW, kind of if you kind of know, you can kind of see where you would potentially fit or not fit. It's one thing to get a job, but if you go be there, they're not gonna really use you, and you kind of get lost in a shuffle. And one week we see you here, and then you're in Ring of Honor, and back and forth. You don't really have no consistency. It's kind of a waste of time. Like an Impact, he can do Team Canada, he can do go after the world title, he could fit somewhere else. But there's always a place for him there. So not surprised, but definitely interested in him get back into the whole TV situation.
I would like to see more Impact guys or TNA guys and gals get reps on Access TV. Frankie Kazarian's already done that. I'd like to see him get a show because his whole vibe is I'm a metalhead. So like, let's see him be a metalhead. As far as Eric Young in TNA goes, I want to see him and Alexander do a tag team for now. I think it's a great way to keep Alexander out of the main event scene while keeping him involved. And I think you could have one hell of a tag team run with him as well, especially with Eric Young. I think that's a great duo, great tandem. And I think the possibilities there, at least for like the foreseeable future, are pretty endless. It kind of reminds me of Daniels and Styles when they got hooked up in '06, and it really was just a sight to behold, and it's something that I would like to see more of, and it's something they've toyed around with on the UK circuit during the tour. So I'm optimistic as to what comes next. But Marcus, what may comes next may be a very big name. Alexander Hammerstone has released, or not released, he's confirmed that he's asked MLW for a release. They have booked him like their Hulk Hogan. He is their top dog, their best thing going, and their longest reigning champion, I think, at least one of. He's truly talented, can cut a promo, he's got natural charisma, a unique look. He looks like a pro wrestler, and he's got so much talent, not just in wrestling. He's a musician, he's a guitarist, a very good one at that. I think he's someone that TNA should be chomping at the bit for. And I think while not on the name value of a Will Ospreay or a CM Punk, I think is as every bit as good as some of the best guys in the company. And I think he makes TNA must-see TV, especially if they're able to get a few more MLW guys who are no longer with the company, like, say, they just signed Myron Reed, or I shouldn't say signed, but Myron Reed's going to be with the company going forward. And then you have someone like Richard Holiday as a free agent. I'd like to see him involved. So there's some option there, and I think they would bolster TNA's long-term viability and would really bolster the company up a notch or two for the name change. Marcus, I know you haven't seen as much Hammerstone as I have, but I've been clamoring for him for a while. do you want to see Hammerstone in the company?
Yeah, man. Like obviously, like you said, you watched far more of him than I have, but the guy looks like a stud, and him being a champion for that company for as long as he has, he obviously, can perform. So I think, somebody like him could come in and really shake things up in a way, like you said, not necessarily on the name value, but they've always been able to get people and consistently put them in situations where they could really thrive and show their potentiality, particularly as a world champion. So, um, no, it's interesting because Hammerstone, I don't know if he's as big height wise, but he does kind of remind me of somebody like in terms of size, like somebody like Jake something. That
Mm-hmm.
actually might be a good if they do get him in a good first feud to have him in. But yeah, I think somebody like Hammerstone can only add value to the roster.
Two other names are apparently done with the company as well. Uh, Juicy Finau, I think I'm saying that wrong. He's a large Tongan wrestler who was part of a short-lived stable with Lance Anawahi and Jacob Fatu. Anawahi and Fatu are related, of course, to the Bloodline members. They're more of the same in terms of like the Bloodline, but they had a great little name in MLW because Lance Anawahi, who has also requested his release and has been granted his release, he's on the left right here if you're watching the stream, and Juicy Finau is on the right. Juicy is Tongan, I think, and Fatu and Finau are Samoan, so they were named the SWAT team, and it was Samoans with a Tongan. And that's what it was abbreviated for, and I thought that was kind of cute. But they were former MLW Tag Team Champions and had very close ties to Jacob Fatu, and they were both released, which makes me wonder, is Jacob Fatu next? Will he be asking for his release? And if that ends up happening, I have to ask the very serious question, is MLW in trouble? Because you're losing your top star in Alexander Hammerstone. You may be losing your next top star in Jacob Fatu, and then you lost a collection of young wrestlers, and it doesn't seem like things are going well for the brand at the moment. So who knows? Now, all three men, Finau, Anawahi, and Hammerstone, have been very gracious towards MLW and Court Bauer with the requests. But as of right now, two of them are gone, and Hammerstone still remains under contract, the best we know of. So, interesting times. Margus, did you know that the NWA actually got a bid over on the AEW folks? In our last story of the night, the Headbangers revealed that they had offers from AEW but went with the NWA instead, saying it was, quote, kind of cool. Just kind of blue and stuff like that, out of the blue and stuff like that. Said Thrasher, we're former NWA World Tag Team Champions. We beat Ricky and Robert, the Rock and Roll Express, legendary. So it was something that we had offers from AEW to go back there and do stuff like that, but we were never really wanting to do the one and done thing. When we went back to WWE in 2016, that's home. WWE is home for us. It's the only major federation we've ever worked for. We never worked for WCW. We never worked for ECW. We've always been WWE guys. When it came to us for the NWA, we looked at each other and went, we don't care if it's one and done, if it's the start of something, which we hope it is. Never say never in this business, so we'll have to see. Mosh then added, with AEW popping up and others, Impact still lingering and being around, we talked about it because people ask us all the time, well, what about AEW? We're like, not really interested. The one thing that always had us interested was the NWA, the heritage behind the NWA. When we first started, NWA was a big deal for us. There was one of it, besides the Monster Factory and Larry's WWE Federation. The NWA was the first one that I wrestled in, like Glenn said. Then we got to beat Ricky and Robert for the NWA Tag Team titles, and it's just kind of funny how it all circles back around. We're going to the NWA, and we're going to be wrestling Ricky's kid. Marcus, are you surprised that the Headbangers picked the NWA over AEW?
They went with what they know and where they know they'll go. It's I appreciate the fact that they know, they stuck with what they know and that they're comfortable with, and that's just, better for them. It's a lot of new names, new, styles and whatever, and just a different type of thing run, how things go. So, uh, you know, sometimes, the safest thing is not the worst bet, you know. Uh, but yeah. The NWA still got a lot of name value, and like you said, that's where they grew up at. That's what they know. So I don't think it's no love lost, no shot at AEW from them. It's just it's where they was comfortable at, and sometimes that means more than money, you know. So
I agree with you. I do hope it's a little shot at AEW. They have a tendency to not use wrestlers well, and Tony Khan needs to figure that out. That being said, both guys are either in their 50s or pushing their 50s, so I don't think it's a giant loss. That said, like with Heath possibly showing up in the NWA and Cardona and EC3 at the top of the brand, I do think guys like Headbangers help bring up the name value a little bit and makes the show a little bit more interesting, at least for the older fans. So I'm fine with it. That being said, we are not going to talk any further about TNA being WCW Light. That was something I had for the show tonight. We are out of time, so we're going to cover that next week. Marcus, any final thoughts on anything before we move on to the rundown, or the outro, I should say? So that being said, we're done. Check us out at the website, realnerdcorp.com, realnerdcorp.com. We are on Twitter at NERDCRP. Marcus, you can be found on your other podcast, The True Penny Show, TruePennyShow, on Twitter. You can also find him on his actual Twitter account, which I usually do the other way around, at Paradox Kid, PARADOXKID. The website, once again, is realnerdcorp.com, REALNERDCRP. We're also on Twitter at NERDCRP. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/The Wrestling Underground, I think. Or maybe it's just Wrestling Underground. And then Twitch is the opposite, either Wrestling Underground or The Wrestling Underground. So check us out there. You can find me on my personals at Chad Nerdcorp, CHADNERDCRP. And on the Instagram at Chad's Photo at CHADSPHOTOHUT. That's CHADSPHOTOHUT. Be sure to check us out next Monday for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast, right here on twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground. I have been Chad Worrell. He has been Marcus Green. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for going to chance. Remember to watch more wrestling. And Marcus, take us home.